That's pretty um, strong. It's not excusing it. It's not saying, well, it's just okay. There's nothing wrong with it. Uncleanness, lust, dishonor, the lie, vile passion, against exchanging the natural use, against nature, leaving the natural use, burning in one's lust, shameful, the penalty of the error, a debased mind, something which is not fitting. What a contrast. Whereas the world says, oh no, it's natural. God says, no, it's against nature. Whereas the world says, oh, it's just a natural thing. No, it says you exchange the natural thing. You leave the natural thing to go this way. It's against nature. So we need to just look at it and understand it that way and not try and excuse or twist the scriptures. Now, and starting off here, perhaps this would be helpful. This is a letter that I have in my files, and I'm just going to read a portion of it. This is from H.B. London, who is uh, I would say, lifelong pastor. You know, as far as most of his adult life, he's been a pastor. He's part of pastoral relationships for Focus on the Family. And he said this, and I just thought it was so good, I thought I'd read it. He said, for years, homosexuality was not a point of controversy in America. The majority of Americans believed it was simply wrong because they had a basic knowledge of the Bible's position on it. Since that time, popular culture and a drift from the Judeo-Christian mindset has caused many to question what they believe about this critical issue. Hardly a day passes without news about another quote unquote scientific study purporting to find a biological or hereditary link to sexual orientation, despite flawed or biased research. Celebrities flaunt the lifestyle. Schools teach acceptance, and that's even more today than when this was written. Even mainline denominations have occasionally embraced the gay Christian quote unquote movement, and that's even more so today, while abandoning traditional interpretations of Scripture. Clearly, many churches are confused about what to believe. Some, through fear and ignorance, build up walls that communicate hate to homosexuals. Often, others with firm biblical convictions don't know how to share their beliefs compassionately with those who struggle. Meanwhile, homosexuality deceives millions, divides families, confuses churches, destroys lives, and breaks God's own heart. When he's talking about homosexuality, he's talking about the blanket term for the whole LGBTQ movement. Now, this paper goes on to say, and this is enlightening, he says, homosexuality is an ever increasing issue within American society. You can't turn on the television or read a newspaper without being confronted by a cauldron of emotions from the homosexual rights movement. Closer to home, parishioners are being forced with having a homosexual family member and struggle between acceptance and rejection. And again, you know, my heart goes out to people who are dealing with this as a family issue and have their own children or grandchildren, or perhaps even their parents, embroiled in same sex attraction and in the homosexual movement. I recognize it's no easy thing, it's a painful thing, it's a divisive thing. But again, we cannot compromise scripture just for the sake of getting along. I've noticed over the years of ministry, and I've been in full time ministry over 40 years, that people who compromise the scriptures and compromise the stand they once had against homosexual relationships, that 9 times out of 10, if not 10 times out of 10, it's not because they've gotten fresh light from the scriptures, it's because a family member, a loved one, has fallen into the homosexual lifestyle. So they say, well, if I'm going to be accepting, if I'm going to not seem hateful or homophobic or rejecting, I am going to have to change my position and say, well, I'm not going to judge them. I'm not going to say it's sin. I'm not going to say it's wrong. So they change the scriptures, they compromise the scriptures in order to get along with somebody in their family, whether it be a child or a grandchild or a brother or sister or a parent. So they just say, well, I'm going to change my position on scripture. We don't have that quote unquote luxury. We don't have that prerogative. We don't have that say, well, I want to justify somebody or oneself in an adulterous relationship. So I'm going to modify the scriptures. I'm going to change the scriptures. Or in fornication, sex outside of marriage, I'm going to change the scriptures. We don't have that prerogative. And why do we know we can't do that with adultery and fornication, but think we can do it when it comes to homosexuality, lesbianism, the whole LGBTQ thing? So my heart goes out to people. I've got family members, relatives. I have a number of acquaintances and friends that I went to school with, high school with, that got into the homosexual movement, and I say it with it gives me no pleasure to say it. I say it with grief and sadness. A number of them are dead today because of that lifestyle and the shortened lifespan that is medically proven, even though the medical profession and doctors and research in that primarily won't talk about it because it's politically incorrect. But studies show, research show, it shortens the lifespan 25 to 45 years. And I can cite some of that here in just a bit. But yet the medical community doesn't talk about it because it's not politically correct, and they don't want to be labeled as homophobes or hate mongers or hate speech. And yet the irony is cigarette smoking shortens one's lifespan a whole lot less than homosexual lifestyle does. And we hear all about the dangers and the hazards of cigarette smoking and how it shortens one life. And that's politically correct to talk about that. But when it comes to a much more dangerous lifestyle, a lifestyle that shortens one's lifespan a whole lot more than cigarette smoking, it's like silence from the medical community, from doctors and researchers. Only from a few dare enough to speak it, and they get they get all kinds of persecution and railed on and called all kinds of names and deplatformed and canceled and fired from their jobs if they just dare to speak the truth. It's tragic. It's sad how politicized this issue has become. Not that the scripture has changed or God has changed, but it's become such a political hot potato that a lot of people don't even want to talk about, don't even want to address it. Let's just ignore it. Let's just act like it's okay. Well, we can't do that and stay true to scripture. All right, tune in again tomorrow and we will take this up from here and continue it. You don't want to miss all this week. This is so important, so timely, and we need to know what saith the scriptures. God bless you. See you tomorrow. Shalom.